Welcome back, fellow armchair generals and railway enthusiasts. This is Gamer1745 here with my good friend, thenewIKB. Say hi, IKB.
Hello, everyone.
And we're going to be playing Railway Empire, taking a look at Britain's railway development. And if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and, of course, the like button. We really do appreciate it. And post your comments, questions about British railway development below. We will try to answer them in a future episode. It might take an episode or two to get that answered, but we will do so. So please post questions and comments. So we're going to continue this here, continue developing. We need to develop 2 cities to 30,000 in populace. We have 38,000 for Manchester, so we should be, yes, 1 of 2. So we've got that now. Liverpool is growing. We have everything that we could possibly hope to want to send to Liverpool that we have attachments to. We don't yet able to move grain unless, let's see, let's just test if they've opened up another area. Nope, we don't have any wheat anywhere in our area that we can attach to. And I think we're going to continue to ignore Hull for the moment. And 20,000 in growing here in Leeds. They need more pork products. Yeah. We do have this down here that we can attach to, but I don't know if we're going to get that over to Leeds. Yeah. So we're just going to let this go for the moment. Let's do a ride along. Let's see. We have...
Let's do a ride along. I'll keep on now.
Yes. Liverpool to Wexham. That's too short. We should have a Leeds to like Liverpool or something. Here we are. Leeds to Liverpool.
Well, we're having this little ride along. I think I shall tell you about the rather unfortunate opening day instance on the original Liverpool and Manchester Railway.
Okay, yes.
Where they might have ever so slightly run over the local member of parliament, who just also happened to be the president of the board of trade, with one of the trains.
How did they do that?
Well, since it was built, since the Liverpool and Manchester Railway was built in many places with double track, they had, since it was the opening day, they of course invited all the local dignitaries and bigwigs, and I do believe even the Prime Minister, the Duke of Wellington of Waterloo fame, was there as well. And they decided, they made one run of the line, got to their Eccles on the line, which is where the places the line passed through between Liverpool and Manchester, and they were having a sort of refreshment break. And I believe the president of the board, the local MP for Liverpool, was at this time was a Right Honourable William Huskinson. He got out of the carriages to see if he could have a chat with, I think it was the Duke of Wellington, who was at this time was the Prime Minister. And you know, they were sort of just about to think about getting back on the train, and then he happened to sort of walk across in front of the train that was coming the other way on the other track.
Ah, okay, so probably couldn't see around the train, yeah.
Well, that's a new. At this time, people weren't used to being able to travel faster than a galloping horse. So the idea that you've got, a locomotive that you've got a train coming down on you at, something close to 30, maybe 35 miles per hour. People weren't used to the idea of something moving that fast. And of course, early trains, just as much as trains today, do not stop quickly.
No.
And so he basically took his leg off, and he died later that night.
I can imagine,
despite having been, he was rushed to a doctor by George Stephenson himself, driving one of the locomotives. And they picked him up, put him on the train, and drove him by train to get him to a doctor. But unfortunately, later that night, he expired.
Right.
So didn't get off to the best of starts, but
yeah, that would be a bit of a problem. Okay, we made it to Liverpool. Cool. So now, unfortunately, with our needing to use the smaller building types, we can't dynamically specify which tracks to use to get through town. So it does slow it up a bit, but I think we're going to have to live with that. Okay, well, we have increased our budget here, which will allow some growth. Okay, well, we do have the pigs here. We do have meat there.
What do people want, and what do we need to make it?
Okay, let's... Yeah, as we sort of saw, I think we need to do big warehouse here. Now there.
That's just a regular sized warehouse. So if we go for a big one, we might be able to.
Yeah. No.
Does that justify the extra? Big one easily gets us there, yes.
I was hoping to do it this side of the river here. Reduce the amount of bridging needed, but that just doesn't look like it's going to be possible.
Sometimes you've just got to accept that you've got to build bridges.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I wish this game did, instead of having these sort of modern steel girder bridges, if it instead had the nice many arched stone and brick viaducts that would have been used at the time.
Yeah,
which I think look much nicer. They
yeah.
Sort of, in many ways, sort of you can't help but compare them to sort of Roman aqueducts in terms of the sort of scale that they're built on.
Now I know what you're saying, and I just wonder, there's an interesting aesthetic to it. When we see something like you're talking like a Roman aqueduct, viaduct, nice arch bridgeway, we see it as nice looking. And where we see, although we may see the achievement and the accomplishment of steel girders and whatnot, we don't see it as nice looking. Did the people back then, I'm saying like before the steel, did they see the bridges as looking nice, or were they to them just their version of steel and right angles? I just wonder what they thought of them. Don't know if anybody has any contemporaneous.
At the time, train travel and such was very much seen as being the new thing, but it was the new thing, along the same way that sort of space flight and rocketry was during the space race. So
Right.
it was very much this was the cutting edge, and people were very much interested in it. And you know I can't see how that I'm pretty certain people at the time must have looked at this thing, these new bridges and stuff, and thought, you know, and those of the sort of upper class who had been on the grand tours of Europe and had seen the vast Roman aqueducts and such must have thought must have made the comparison. And this was sort of the first time that you start seeing bridges and such and man-made structures on such a scale.
Right.
That sort of thing. Really, since the last people who did big civil engineering on that sort of scale was really the Romans. So it was definitely, and there were in many ways sort of the Victorian sort of even though this is still a little bit before Queen Victoria came to the throne, people still sort of saw themselves as the successors to Rome and sort of thought okay, this is our proving that we are worthy of that. But they definitely and there was when it came down to building stations and such, there was a lot of effort put into making them seem like they fitted in.
Mm-hmm.
So having things like sort of big marble arches and sort of colonnades that look sort of reminiscent of a Greek temple to sort of sell the idea that this is high class, this is high status, and to at the same time sort of give the suggestion that it's been here forever, even though it hasn't.
Okay. That's
Because
interesting.
particularly if you look at one great example for this is the Brunel's original train station in Bristol is very much built in the style of a Tudor palace.
Okay.
Idea
Oh,
that you're trying to make this look like something that people are familiar with and that seems you give this impression that it's been here forever,
right. And like
and
for
people will be
me,
more willing to accept this sort of thing.
okay, like for me, Tudor palaces, bricks and artistically done bricks. And so, as opposed to
Mm.
later palaces, which I think look nicer, but yeah, Tudor palaces, I could see that would be a thing that would also harken to the, shall we say, romantic ideal of Britain.
Yes, very much. Sort of the sort of architectural accents that are applied to things very much sort of try to give this sort of romantic appeal to it. Sort of the idea that all very nicely nice and well cut stonework, and like you said, you're very artistically done things with bricks that very much appeal to have a very appealing aesthetic to them.
Okay, we have a possibility for a connection bonus. Do we have anybody here? Okay, we're starting to need wood in Manchester, but they're getting it. Yeah, 40,000. So it's only Manchester, but they're. Well, I don't know if we're going to do that.
It would be a very short line, and could we build something in Manchester that would use wood?
Well, they have a demand for it at 40,000, which they're at. They have a demand for wood, but they're getting enough. But they just want to be on the line. But I don't want to clog up the main station there. We can add more station. We can add one more station to Manchester itself, whether here like that, just barely. We could do that, or try to put something a little more there. But that isn't necessarily good. So what it would take would be a warehouse, because I don't really want to just to deliver wood. We'd have to come out here. I don't know, because we are looking at getting, it's what, Liverpool? Yeah, Liverpool to London. So I guess we would go via Oxford. Let's pause this. So probably Wrexham, down to Birmingham, down to Oxford, down to London. Does that seem like what they did, AKB?
Yep. The sort of not quite the follow-on project, but sort of the next step that sort of happened after the Liverpool and Manchester was the London to Birmingham railway.
Okay. Okay, that's sort of along the line. So, but we might still want to come connecting down through here to Birmingham as well from Manchester. Okay, well, we need to get a little bit more money. So I don't want to just throw on, because we have through trains, because I'm very much, it's not just passengers, it's passengers and city products. So city to city line, and then a I don't know, country to city or external industrial to city. Oh, they need. Okay, we need what?
Industry to manufacturing center line, sort of.
Yeah, exactly. We'll add a couple of, because all the trains need to either go to the apple farm or the sea farm.
Have we got enough maintenance towers and such?
We do. We just don't have enough. Until I just put into
into the actual maintenance buildings at
yeah,
stations.
maintenance. Yeah. So because we have to pay for them significantly, we're just doing them at the two farms instead of the warehouses. Because all the trains need to go to a farm.
Yeah.
And there's 2 of those versus 3 of the warehouses, so it was a cheaper, hopefully effective, but definitely a cheaper alternative. If they're compatible. Yeah. I'm taking very much the attitude that town to town transfers, I want to keep them as speedy as possible, as few overpassing over other railways as possible, so that flows as fast as possible. Where the freight lines, they can move as slow as they're going to move, and I'll just add in more lines if I need to make up for any slowness of speed on their part. Okay, well, we're getting Liverpool. Liverpool looks like our target. And so that's going to be our next. Okay, I think we have the money here, so we're going to add a warehouse outside here. Let's see if we can put in sort of like trying for a bit of the narrows here. That may not work. We'll see. Well, it's not that cheap. That's going to be that big anyway. So let's dump this. Yeah, but we'll just have a bridge across more water there. I think that'll be a little better. Yeah, a lot more expensive, but mostly in the bridge, which is just a one. Okay, there we go. Wow, just barely. Look at that, just barely. Well, we don't have enough for the points yet, so we'll wait to earn a little bit more. Hello, Oblivion. I really enjoy a Railway Empire. My biggest complaint is I get through the DLCs and want to play more and more. So their base game is fairly extensive. It's US focused, and then they've gone on to DLCs for Latin America, Canada, Britain, which is the one we're currently playing, Germany, France, Scandinavia, and just coming out, actually I think it was yesterday, fresh out is Australia. So I can recommend this game. You can look at some of I do have complaints. It's not perfect. No game is, but I like to play it just as a good, fun activity. So I will recommend this. Most assuredly. Okay, we can do this now. And beyond that, just watch my videos to see if it's the type of game for you before you spend your money. There we go. There, yeah, okay. Let's add a few more signals there. We're just going to use the one. Oh, we got to make sure they're going to pick up or accept pork in the warehouse. Why isn't it? Oh, what did I mess up on?
What seems to be the problem, gamer?
Don't know.
Are you sure you haven't connected up the middle station? You haven't connected the...
To the right place. No, I didn't. Okay. There is a bit of a trick we can do here. Go in, hit that. Get rid of all of this. Okay, there we go. Well, I'm used to using their more advanced one, in which is they have the
It's the good old place a supply tower. Use that to create a break so that you could delete.
Yeah. Signal control. I'm used to using the signal control stations, which would automatically shift them through to the different locations. Let's see if we can get this here. Okay, well, get along there. We can, yeah. There we go. And we get this back for complete refund. Okay, there we go. Now we can do this. Well, okay, we're going to switch it to the other rail. There we go. get to the John Bull. I think I would rather have these numbers. Yeah, we'll do this.
Gamer.
Yeah. Yes. That's the one that goes to Germany, and then John Bull is the one that gets shipped over to America. Okay.
Because at this sort of time period, basically the only place you could get steam locomotives was to basically to come to England and to have a talk to Mr. Stevenson about buying some, because this was literally railways and steam locomotives are basically England's gift to the world, because this was sort of the big the first place we started building them was the only place that for a little while had the required skill set.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's a skill set. Because I didn't even think about it, but I'm sure, yes, they had to do transatlantic shipping for the first trains. I know by the 1850s we were building them in the U.S. I'm sure, but for the first few years, yes, absolutely. Okay, we've now built up enough money. Let's. Oh, they now have a tweed manufacturing, and that's still out of our territory. Well, there's. Okay. I was really hoping this would open up and we would come from Leeds to Hull that way. I think I'm going to ignore that for the moment because Manchester's more than successful. As Liverpool is our current focus.
Project.
Yeah. And they're getting all of their goods now enough that I think we will make it to that goal by 1833. We're still in 18, and it's by the end of 1833, so it's basically 1834.
We're still in 1831, so
yeah, we're going to get our second city of 30,000 before then. Okay, we've got a lot of conductors. So I think most of our trains that are passenger based are going to have a conductor. Maybe I should stop hiring them. Although they could use one.
now, of course, having there be a demand for large amounts of alcoholic beverages is also fits quite well into the time period, because at the time there were plenty of places where drinking the beer or the cider was definitely safer than drinking the water.
Yeah, that is very true, because they didn't quite yet know about boiling water and that it was a potential health benefit. And that goes back to our earlier talk, bit off camera from our recording, those watching later, which would be most everybody. IKB and I were talking about early industrialization and the lives
The
of
people of Birmingham have allowed themselves to be convinced by our recent success, and a portion of the way is cleared now. If we help to establish the industry, it will probably convince even skeptics of other regions.
Okay, cool. As I was saying, talking about the conditions of the workers or just people in general in the early industrial age were particularly bad, and some of that was, of course, just lack of knowledge on things and how to handle it. Okay, well, good. Well, we have a fair amount of
Okay, so we've now got Birmingham unlocked.
you know, I don't know. I think maybe we ought to start with a large train station, because this looks to me, and although we can't have 2 train stations, if we start building this up right, it's gonna be,
Because Birmingham is quite a good sort of central location, so we're probably going to end up with an awful lot of
yeah.
stuff coming in and out of Birmingham. So having a big station to start with might be a worthwhile investment for the future.
Yeah, and that's what I'd like to do, because we got Wales down into Cornwall coming north up that way that could connect to it, and then
We're going to have sort of Oxford down to London,
right. Okay,
have
so,
across to Peterborough and Cambridge,
okay, so
maybe even north to Nottingham.
put this out on the extreme side there. Now,
Because of course the railways preferred it that their permanent workforce were actually manning the trains and stuff, but they very much preferred it that they were sober. At least when they were working.
Right. Yeah, and so that was, I also think, another reason, or one of the reasons I think Britain did as well as it did in conquering its empire is its tea. And I don't think I'm not saying historians now don't know about it, but I don't think they figured it out at the time. It was because so many of the Britons overseas, as well as at home in Britain, were boiling their water for tea and drinking tea enough that it helped reduce their exposure, where other non-tea drinking cultures were going out into the same areas and getting sicker. I think that is the thing. I can't prove it. I don't have any good stats on it, but I think that is a thing. Okay, that's up a little up, a little down. See if we lower this by just one. Yeah. Well, that's also reduced the bridge size. Yeah, that's really good. Okay. Okay, so we'll have that as one path. See, I'm thinking eventually this is going to become a complicated switchover for the 4 rail lines coming through
at
here.
some point everything to do with trains becomes incredibly complicated.
Yeah, meaning you're going to be able to go from this outside line to the other outside line through all of this at some point to switching through. Okay, well, we got to wait a little bit before we can buy our next. But I think we're generating enough funds that it'll happen fast.
Yes. Because I was last summer, I took a trip up to the Iron Bridge, to some of the museums around there, to the sort of what is basically the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution in England, at least. And it was, they had a preserved ironworks there,
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of tour guide who was giving his speech about it said that you know, because it was so because they were obviously working with red hot iron, furnaces going, hot metal. They were sweating all the time, so they needed something to drink. But of course, the water wasn't considered safe. So the workers at the ironworks back in the day, sort of around this sort of time, maybe and a little bit later, were getting paid for by the company 12 pints of beer a day.
That's maybe.
Admittedly, this would have been weaker than what beer tends to be these days, but that's still 12 pints.
Yes.
Now, of course, if you were a boy, so you were if you were a boy working there, only got 6 pints. But of course, by standards at the time, you were considered for the purposes of company alcohol ration, you were considered to be a man when you turned 13. So if you were working at the ironworks and you knew that little Jimmy over there had just turned 13 and this was his first day on the full alcohol ration, that might be a good day to call in sick.
Yeah, I could imagine.
I mean, admittedly, this would have been, compared to current beer, this would have been quite weak stuff. But
I can imagine. Yeah.
There was quite a range of opinions among sort of large industrialists at the time on alcohol and its potential benefits and drawbacks. Since yes, it doesn't. You might have a slightly drunk workforce, but at a certain extent, the same reason why the Navy kept hold of having rum on board ships for such a long time is that ever so slightly drunk workforce is slightly less likely to cause disruptive labour relations issues. After all, if you are giving them such a large quantity of beer on the company dime, they're probably going to be quite happy with you.
Yeah.
But then there are some other industrialists who particularly knows who decided they were going to sort of set up their own sort of company housing, and basically said, okay, this is our company town. There will be no alcohol in this town. And not just we're not going to build a pub. It's like, no, if you come, one of their sort of company towns for a large pottery works actually had carved into the arch as you went into town, abandoned beer, all ye who enter here.
Yeah, there was a lot of idealism going on that wasn't necessarily for the best.
So there was, at the time, there were quite large the railways were perfectly happy to employ navvies for the brute force digging, who spent a lot of their time drunk. But when it comes down to the actual safety critical running of trains, they want people as sober as possible.
Right. Yeah. A few navvies dying in building a railway is one thing. To have a few paying customers die can be another problem entirely.
That tends to cause trouble. Yes. So at the same time, 12 pints of beer on the company dime.
Yeah.
And why you can understand why some people thought, okay, yeah, I'm working in a ironworks with nasty fumes and stuff, but 12 pints of beer. I do wonder if maybe certain companies might have kept that around as a tactic to attract staff, on the grounds that okay, yeah, the water might be safer now, but
Yeah. I
will attract.
I don't know really how much competition there was for like recruiting labor. I don't know. whether that was really an incentive to work in one place versus another, whether that was needed.
Because skilled, people who were skilled at working with raw iron were definitely that was a skill that was in demand and that people would want.
True.
Especially at early stages of the Industrial Revolution, it was not uncommon for people to try and headhunt or steal people who knew certain trade secrets from different companies. And in many ways, in some ways we know more about ancient Greece and Rome than we do about some of the earliest days of the Industrial Revolution, because a lot of it wasn't recorded, because either the guys doing the experimentation may have been illiterate, or even if they could read and write, they were of the opinion, I'm not going to write down my special formula to make better iron, because if it's written down someone might steal it, therefore it's safer if it's just in my head.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you on the idea that a lot of the stuff they kept confidential and we don't know. But I think it was like one estimate within my lifetime, but probably within the last 30 years, 90% of all human literature is lost to us. I'm not talking 90% of like letters between people. I'm talking published literature, because so much has been lost with the fall of Rome and that and other going, whether it's China, we have a bunch of the classics, Sun Tzu and some of the other classics, but so much other literature, published literature, and even a lot of that is before the printing press. Most of it is, but so much of it out there we have lost. And I think we may know a lot about ancient Greece and Rome and whatnot, but I think so much of it is lost that I think we do know more about the 19th century. I'm not disputing that how much of it was not recorded and that we don't know about it, or kept or recorded but not well publicized and was destroyed and is lost to us now. So as a historian who studied things, there's so much missing of the ancient past. It's the modern, more modern world, the 20th century and the 21st century, that we are drowned in the amounts of information and data. Okay, well, see, our goal is produce loads of tweed. Okay, so now we actually need to produce loads of tweed, not just have loads of tweed produced. So that basically means we need to either buy or
build something that makes tweed.
Yes, okay. Okay, it looks like we have enough to start our auction. I don't think there's anybody going to be bidding to get this weaving factory, so let's do that. And then we will need to make sure that we get what is sheep's wool. I figured that, but yes, whatever they're calling it. Okay. Now I think
because we are going to need an awful lot of tweed to make all of those flat caps that all of the working men are going to wear.
Absolutely. I was thinking tweed jackets, but you're absolutely right. The flat caps, that was something very, very common.
Because it wouldn't do to be seen without a hat.
No, that was an essential. Oh, that is okay. Well, why did they have to stick that there? Damn. Okay.
And then there is Walton northeast. I've seen. There may be other.
Well, no, we have it to the south here. We have it right
to the south. That's good.
Yeah. So what we need to do here is, and I think because unfortunately, since we didn't buy it and place it, I would have put it to the north of the railway. which if we get rich enough, we may demolish and rebuild it, pay for that. But let's go with something like that. And I know that's going to eat all of our money, but we'll bring another one. We'll bring the railway up to there as soon as we can. We have until 1835, so we've got plenty of time.
Yep.
I really think the system of having dual, primary freight and then a city passenger kind of connection line really speeds up how fast you get through.
Yes, as and considering that the game doesn't handle passing loops and such particularly well, it does that does seem to be the natural way to go.
Okay.
And I think over by Warehouse 4 we could probably do with some maintenance facilities.
Yes, you are right about that, but I'm going to forgo that for the moment because I want to focus on getting this up. But you're right, it needs it. You're absolutely right on that. Okay, let's just get this mapped out here. Okay, now let's look at elevations. Okay, we're going up and then we go down. So let's see if we can lower this just a little bit. Yeah, and then that. I guess so. Just a 4% grade and a 2% grade is better than a 5% grade, so we'll go with that once we get the money for it. Yeah.
Now, of course, large-scale earthworks are one of the major capital outlays for building a railway.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be. I gather, steel is a critical element, and were the rails steel at this point?
At this point, it would have been wrought iron.
Okay.
Initially.
So that would be significantly cheaper.
Especially because at this time, this is before you've got such things as the Bessemer converter. So making steel in large quantities is still relatively difficult. So people are still much more focused on iron. And wrought iron, which is sort of wrought is sort of a corruption of worked iron that has been, hammered and stretched out through a rolling mill.
Right.
They'd be using. Of course, cast iron is far too brittle and will snap and shatter under heavy impact loads.
Yeah, cast iron has its purposes, but you're right, it is a... Oh, we're doing this wrong, we're doing this wrong, we're doing this wrong. Get rid of the signal station, we've got to put in our points. There we go. Then the signal stations.
Because... Because when you're using steam locomotives, there is a sort of effect known as hammer blow, whereby the oscillations of the pistons and the valve gear will basically translate a literal hammer blow force into the track, which will cause damage, which is one of the reasons why why they continuously seek for better materials to make rail out of, so that they don't wear out so quickly.
Okay, I had not known that they would have that as being a
Because
thing.
it's a problem that they basically don't really get rid of it until they move away from steam locomotives, because the sort of finesse in getting a steam locomotive completely properly balanced, so that the or the off center bit of your crank axle, where your connecting rod comes from your piston, having the correct counterweight on the other side of the wheel or axle to balance that out, getting those honed in to be perfectly balanced is something that, even towards the end of steam locomotive development, is still, and it gets better, it gets a lot better, but it never gets perfect. Whereas with diesel and electric locomotives, you've got sort of direct drive from either electric motors, or things are going through gears where you can have essentially a gear has the same mass whichever point on it you take.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas crank axles and such are by their very nature are off balance and off center. And yes, Dark Spider, we are on our way to London, slowly but surely creating what eventually sort of becomes the West Coast Main Line.
Yes.
Even though for most of its route it's actually not that close to the West Coast, but
Yeah. Okay, we missed out because I just waited too long, but it was I think, necessary delay to get the bonus for the lumber yard, as it were. But we still have connection bonus for milk. And now that, because the big problem, and I had been thinking on, we probably will at some point connect that up there, but here we can put in a train station. Here we'll put it on the coastal side, I think. Let's see, how low can we get it? Elevation. Okay, that's...
got some locomotives complaining about low supplies, so we might need some more.
Yeah, we will need to do that, but I want to go ahead and grab this up here, and then... Oh, no, that's... Oh, well, okay. Actually, this isn't going to be so bad, because our uphill will be empty and our downhill will be with a load. Yeah, I mean, it's not good, but it's
not perfect, but it could be worse.
Yeah, no. Let's start over again. Let's see if we can get to 12 degrees. Okay, there we go. And then, yeah, and let's see, I think maybe we can even up. No. No, we should have left it alone. Let's try it again. Okay, well, okay, we'll live with that.
Of course, the station does appear to be on a downhill slant.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I don't know how much milk we're going to move to the north. We got Middlesbrough, Newcastle, but those are way off Carlisle.
As I do hope that at some point we get to head up towards Carlisle and that way, because then we can build the Settle Carlisle line, and that is and that's a...
Now, see what I'm thinking of doing, whether we try to expand our current station and redo some of that in Liverpool, or simply put another station in Liverpool and move up. I'm thinking of doing a separate line for that through, you know, this side, coming up over this freight system and up that way is what I'm thinking. We will see as we get there.
because of course the coming of the railways is the first time that you have the possibility of getting fresh milk delivered, directly into large cities without needing to have, live cows around.
That's very true. I hadn't even thought of that. Okay, so now we can come to warehouse 1 and add in milk as a thing to accept. And we'll set up a milk train.
Hopefully that will mean lots and lots and lots of milk churns being filled up and delivered to the station. Yep, lots of milk. And then shall we take some time to check on, make sure we've got maintenance buildings in all the right places?
Yes, you're right. We do need to do that. Okay, this okay, we're gonna do it at Turner Fattening because they won't maintain trains that just go through here. So both of these warehouses or trains have to stop here. So this would be the strategic place to put it. We're gonna have one there. Now we have one here, so we probably don't need one in Wrexham because the Wrexham to Liverpool and everywhere else lines will get there. So let's put one down here in Birmingham. Barely enough to do that. Okay, there we go. So we can keep that relatively well maintained.
And I think up and around our Apple, we're going to need to look at some more water towers and such, as we are going to need to, because steam locomotives are very, very thirsty and they need a lot of water, and you don't want them running out of water.
It's yes, here, you're right. Okay. Okay, so it's this route that comes in the back side here that we'll stick in. I guess right about here to the warehouse there. Locomotive missing. Okay, we also need one
because a steam locomotive without the correct amount of water in its boiler very quickly turns into potentially a very large pressure cooker bomb.
Okay, yeah, I didn't think of that, but yeah, it would be bad.
Because the especially in the early days of rail travel, the risk of boiler explosions was not completely eliminated yet. It was still a still something that you had to worry about, because they had yet to develop the full range of safety systems that make that a basic impossibility on modern steam locomotives, unless you're on purposely setting out to turn it into a pressure cooker bomb, which you would, if you were evil enough, you could, but I would highly advise against it.
Right. Let's add another train to this line here. It's almost full. It's okay, well, we've produced almost, well, we have now 3 of our needed wool of 60.
So hopefully soon more of the people of Manchester will have all of their flat caps.
Yep, they'll need them.
Everyone must have a flat cap.
Yeah, though they've gone against your natural instincts, and their clothing that gets made with it is is tweed jacket instead of a flat cap. But you're right, flat cap probably would have been the thing to do.
Yes.
I didn't even think of that until you said it. But then I'm sure you've heard of, if you haven't seen it, the Peaky Blinders series.
The Peaky Blinders, yes.
Yes. Now, of course, they're also denoted by their haircut and everything else, but that is well, I mean, that's in the 20th century. But yeah, that fashion is something that it was here in America, but never to the extent that it was in Britain.
Yeah, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, I'm going to drop a link to a Google image search for flat caps into the chat.
Sure.
And I will also drop it into a message to you, gamer, so that you can put it into the
description,
video description.
Sure, we'll do that.
Because of course, if you were a gentleman, then you wore a top hat, stovepipe hat,
right,
which were normally made out of felt, normally with silk over it.
I think now it is, and I definitely know later as a definite thing, but I think the gentleman in the countryside would wear a flat cap, but in the city would wear a stovepipe. I think that would be the case.
Well, the one place in modern Britain where the flat cap is still sort of somewhat commonly worn, sort of as an everyday wear item, does tend to be out in the countryside amongst farmers.
Right, and I've definitely seen, if we're looking into the 20th century, gentlemen out in the countryside hunting, shooting, whatever, to me, hunting, yeah, I've had this conversation with a few people. Oh, I like to hunt. Oh, you do? You do that in America? And we had a little confusion. They saw hunting and they did, riding to hounds, where my hunting is what they would call stalking with a gun. So, I guess stalking and then shooting, which for them is mostly shooting birds, though you can be shooting clays with your shotgun. So slightly different gun terminology language between the different groups.
Yeah.
So yeah.
In Britain, the two sort of main forms of hunting, you mainly get, like you said, sort of fox hunting, where traditionally, before it was banned, you got a huge pack of hounds together, all dressed in strange red jackets, and then went to gallop around the countryside with said hounds trying to chase down a fox.
Right.
And then the other form of if you were going to like stalking, like a like you said, you're stalking a deer or something to shoot for venison, we would sort of view that as deer stalking. And then the other thing is the other sort of form of hunting that takes place in the United Kingdom and was definitely a thing around this time, which was more of like a gentleman's upper class sort of thing, was shooting things like pheasants or grouse.
Right. Yeah, a friend of mine. Yeah, a friend of mine was big into bird shooting, and he lived in London but did most of it up in Scotland. So visited his mother a few times. I mean, he was older than I was, and his mother was of the World War II generation, as in she parachuted into Yugoslavia during the German occupation of Yugoslavia. kind of thing. That World War II generation. And so a few times when I was visiting up at the house in Scotland, they had these big sort of coffin size freezers that were horizontal, wrapped up
Big
with
chest
birds.
freezer filled with pheasants or grouse or
Yeah, and so she was cooking us some of the game birds, which is something I'm not used to having over here as game birds. So yeah, he was that sort of.
Pheasant is a they taste quite strong. They've got quite a strong taste.
Very, as they say, gamey. And so
very gamey.
And I ate it, and it was okay-ish. It's not something I would overly choose to eat, but definitely something I hadn't experienced before and did want to experience. So yeah, it's not so. Out here they do a little bit of quail shooting, which is sort of, quail is not like a pigeon, but sort of like a pigeon. But it's sort of small, and you don't get much meat off of it, and it's nothing I really want to bother with doing. But so we do have that in California here, but there's not a lot of other bird shooting for food.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
And of course, in Britain, sort of pheasants and grouse were often there was quite often quite a lot of effort put into essentially cultivating them. Almost to the extent where you could almost sort of call it farming, where they're laying out food for them and stuff to make sure that the pheasants are well fed and nice and fat for when it's time for the shoot.
Right.
Because pheasants are basically a chicken that's remembered how to fly at the expense of half of its brain power.
Yeah.
They're not very intelligent creatures.
Yeah, I can readily agree with that. Yeah, that works. Okay, well, I think on that note, we're going to end this episode. I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank you, IKB, for the great color commentary.
Thank you for having me, Gamer.
And so, like everyone else, if you haven't already, please subscribe, like the videos. You can follow me over on Twitch, is where we live stream this, so that we can do this together. And we love to hear your comments. Post your questions. We will try to get to them in a future episode on the rail development in Britain, or rail development in general. So thanks, everyone. See you next time for more historical gaming.